Plants that eat animals? It's true. There are such things called carnivorous plants, plants that can consume animals. And we've had a fascination with carnivorous plants ever since Charles Darwin discovered they existed in the late 1800s. We've seen them emerge in pop culture, in comic books, in television, in movies, and now it's become a huge phenomena in the horticultural and plant breeding areas. But why do plant carnivores exist? What happened in evolution that caused them to be that way? And what kind of carnivorous plants are there? Let's talk about it. Before we get into it, let's first just define what a carnivorous plant is. A plant is carnivorous if it derives some or any of its nutrients that we usually see plants take up in their roots by trapping and consuming animals, protozoans, and small things. Now, there is some evidence that they'll catch vertebrates like mice and lizards and things like that, but it's not super common. Carnivorous plants are considered to be mixotrophic because they get their resources from more than one source, not just the soil, not just the air, but also from consuming prey. If a plant happens to benefit from the nutrients of a dead organism, does that make it carnivorous? No. Our definition requires trapping of prey. So how did some plants evolve to be carnivorous? Evolutionary botanists believe that carnivory came from one of the many defensive strategies in plants, diversion, which is where a plant may lure herbivores or other threats to non-essential parts. So if an herbivore is drawn to a colorful, nice-smelling pitcher, then it may not be drawn to the flower. When over time organisms were trapped and died by these diversions, the plants then took advantage of the nutrients they left behind. Natural selection favored plants that did this, and the anatomical features that promoted carnivory persisted. Now, not all plants need to resort to carnivory to get essential nutrients, and what we observe is that carnivorous plants tend to be abundant where resources are poor, like swamps and bogs, or up in trees where plant roots can't have access to soil. So let's talk trapping. There are basically two types of traps, active and passive. Active traps involve mobility of the trapping mechanism, accelerated trapping motion like we see here with this Venus flytrap. With passive traps, there isn't any motion. The prey get lured into the trap, often fall in, and can't escape. Silly bugs. There are 5 observed trapping mechanisms in nature, and we'll go through each. Pitfalls are passive traps like I talked about, where prey fall in and can't get out. These traps are theorized to have evolved from rolled leaves. Nepenthes and Sarracenia are the most common pitfall traps and have become very popular in the horticultural industry for the different varietal colors. Next are flypaper traps, which include our sundews and butterworts. These are semi-passive traps. The leaves are studded with mucilage secreting glands which make them sticky. Prey can't escape the stickiness. Sometimes the leaves curl after capture. Snap traps are active traps that have rapid movement. The leaves have terminal sections divided into 2 lobes hinged along a midrib. When a trigger hair is bent, stretch-gated ion channels in the membranes of the cells trigger an action potential-like reaction that makes the cells move towards the midrib and close the trap. Bladder traps are active traps in aquatic environments. The bladder structures on these create a vacuum that can rapidly suck small prey inside, and then the bladder shut with a trap door. From land, these traps can be seen by the small flowers that emerge from the surface of the water. Lobster traps are passive and involve a chamber that's easy to enter, but are super difficult to leave because of the leaf shape or obstructions inside like inward pointing bristles. Often these traps are evolved versions of pitfall traps. Now the different traps can catch prey, but not all of the carnivorous plants can digest prey on their own. Some rely on a community of bacteria or small organisms to break down the prey into more consumable parts for the plant, similar to how humans rely on bacteria in our guts. You may have also noticed from the pictures the bright colors of these traps, with red being the dominant color. Red is an attractant to the traps, but the traps may also use scent and nectar to draw prey inside. With all these different traps, it's no surprise that there are more than 800 species of carnivorous plants in the world, with most of that diversity coming in the form of bladderworts, butterworts, and the hanging pitchers from the Nepenthes family. What shocks me is that carnivorian plants developed independently at least 11 times, which is evidenced by different carnivorous plant families not being related. What doesn't shock me is that so many of these plants are threatened or endangered due to climate change, habitat loss, and the horticultural trade. I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction to carnivorous plants. If you have any questions, leave one in the comments. Thanks.